Hey guys, welcome to the Vision Maker Podcast with your special host, me, Darylus Chavarria, and a special guest, Victor Miranda. Victor, tell us about yourself and how you became the Vision Maker CEO as well as the owner slash, I don't know.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Oh man,
Tell us,
yeah,
tell
I
us.
think I'm about to lose my hosting privileges after that intro. So I'm Victor Miranda. Yes, I am the owner of Vision Maker Productions, a production company out here in the Hamptons in Long Island, New York. Um, and we do mostly like commercial videography, but we also have a studio and we have this podcast
Of
where
course.
we love talking with other creatives and filmmakers. And yeah, no, I am. It's interesting being on the opposite side of the seat with my very good friend and partner, Dallas, over here.
Thank you. You're making me blush over here. So, Vic, the people want to know, what does it take to be a vision maker?
The premise of the name really came from just like creating other people's visions, making them come true. I cannot take credit for that, as Eric Casey actually boldly came up with the name.
Good job, Eric.
Yeah, and but I love it, and I feel like it really goes into my mission statement. We're helping others, and for me, I mean, Vision Maker has been around since the turn of the pandemic. Really, since I made that pivot into videography, and it was not a full-time thing at all. As most of us, it's like when you're starting out, you're not making much money. You're just kind of learning it. You're diving
Right.
in the deep end. I have no educational background in
Because you were an
filmmaking.
audio guy
Yeah.
before this.
An audio engineer for 10 years. Yeah. Doing live events. And then, as you probably have heard, different antidotes. But yeah, no, but the thing is just finding a good team and then understanding though, you may go quick on your own, but you're capped by yourself, but you can go far with others is a good quote that I've heard. And but it really encompasses that, because what really like projected this more than any other thing I've done in my life was that I quickly found a group of people
Right.
that I can work with, and people who are talented but may not have the connections or the business or the sales side of things, but they had the talent, the technical expertise. So I kind of like saw myself as the position where I can leverage that. Like I can bring people and then have them leverage their techniques so they can get the work they need, because that's where they struggle, is getting the clients, and the clients can still get quality work.
Right.
But then it was just, working hard year. We started working together in different things, and I had my full-time job outside of this,
Right.
and just building it up until eventually we got the right clientele that justified me leaving my 9 to 5 to be fully working and dedicated to our clients. Just to the point where it was like, okay, if I'm going to take on this specific client or this or that, it's like I need to be full time in it.
Of course. Yeah.
So
Now, what qualifies somebody then in your eyes to be like, yo, that person you would want in an employee or a fellow worker?
I think this rings true in any industry. People will always rehire people they enjoyed working with. It's yes, if the person is enjoyable to be around, but they have no idea what they're doing, it's nice, but they're also not getting rehired. It's like there's a certain level of competency, of course, but I don't think that's like the most rare thing to find. It's more of like, are you able to work in a team? Are you able to collaborate? Are you able to, take your responsibility and own it, And are you able to really be a partner in whatever you're doing, or like a valuable asset? So it's like people we work with the most are the people I feel that like I can set them on a task and I don't really have to babysit them. At the same time, I also know that like we at least have a mutual understanding. Like I can work with them really well, and I don't have to also babysit them around the client, because they also have that like certain level of buffer and respect to how the relationship is, and that looks different for everybody. But I think it's definitely like being able to can you work with people, you
Right.
have that attitude and everything.
And communicate with
Yeah.
them as well.
Communication. Transparency. Don't like try to be like, I got this when you really have no idea. And you're just like, the fire's growing right behind you and you're trying to hide
Yeah.
it. Like, no, let me know, like, or whoever it is. And just because it's like, most of the time, like for me, I just like, I want to put the fire out as soon as possible. We're here working together. I'm not going to judge you or demean you. I'm not your parent.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know, as
Yeah.
so there's a quote I just thought of when you were saying that, that I love from John Maxwell, a great author, speaker. And he, in one of his books, I remember reading, everything rises and falls on leadership. Everything at the end of the day, when you are a business owner, a team lead, or whatever, you know, or even a parent, you know, it's like the people in your command are your responsibility. And the client, you're the direct point with the client. So it's anything that happens, it's on you, regardless if it's your fault at all. It's
Right.
on you, you know?
Right.
Because it happened under your supervision, seriously, you know, be it whatever the actual nuances and everything like that. But it's a big part about like actually being able to be a real leader and moving forward is understanding that. And because that gives you a different mindset when dealing with people also. And then in that sense too, is like I'm the one with the personal rapport with the client in those cases, in a lot of those cases. And the thing is, like, you're both trying to get a product, and a lot of times that I find it's just things happen. They're going to inevitably happen. It just,
Of course.
you know, out of the blue. I was dealing with something today on an edit that's blowing my mind, but it's besides the point. It's just things happen, and then it causes delays or this or that, which, of course, is hard to explain to a client half the time.
Because they don't understand the ins and outs of,
Exactly. And
something, just an export taking 2 days, and they're just
yeah,
like, I thought you finished the edit.
yeah.
I did, but
The computer's having its issues. I don't know why. This one frame doesn't want to be not stuck. I don't know. And I'm obviously not going to give you something jittery, so I'm trying to figure it out.
Right.
And sometimes with computers, it takes a long time. But that's like one of many things that like we as professionals in the industry run into. And, you know, those clients, they're experts in their field, so they only have that to reference. And sometimes it's not a technical field, you know. They have technicality involved in their field, so they're very smart. But it's like they don't know anything about our world in that sense. We're the experts in it, which is why they're working with us. And in that same sense, it's understanding that you're not doing like they don't understand that you did anything wrong yet. They just know it's delayed. But if you're coming to them and just being sympathetic and also just saying, hey, we experienced some setbacks and delay, but we are working on resolving them mainly because we want to make sure we give you the best product possible. And it's just not ready yet.
You make it sound so nice.
Yeah, and
It's just
but
like,
see, that's
you already
what
sold me on just like, I can't be angry at you already.
that's the escalation, you know, because they're coming ready to fight. They're like, you know, because they deal you with like any other employee half the time, you know. They're like they see you as like another employee, even though you're not. But it's just understanding where they're coming from, and then just people can't stay angry when you're only responding with respect and kindness. It's very hard.
That's such a nice cop out. It's
The
just like,
longer they stay, like they're trying to be an aggressor, and they're trying because sometimes people here in America too, it's like sometimes you get this culture of like, if I'm emotional and I can get you emotional, then I can justify a refund or I can justify whatever, you know, or I can justify you. Like if I turn you into a victim, then you can just like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll do this. Customer's always right. It's like, you know, but like if you never do that, the longer you prolong it, the crazier they sound to themselves.
very true.
But of course, you're not doing that maliciously either. You're not trying to like manipulate the situation either. You know, you're just being honest and you're keeping a cool head.
Now, this I guess is a outside question, but as society in United States, like being victimized, do you think that's an ongoing issue, or is that just a world issue, a human being issue?
I think it's a human being issue. I do think it manifests differently depending where you are culturally and societally. I think on a base level, Oh, there was a very interesting study my wife showed me once, but it talks about a cycle that people go through in arguments, where it's a triangular cycle. You got your victim, your aggressor.
A triangle cycle.
Like I'm
No,
just
no,
saying, like, there's 3 points to it.
I just
There's
like
3 points
it's a
to it.
cycle, but it's a triangle. I
And then
get
there's
you.
like I forgot what the third one's like, the judger. So it's like you tend to and in a given argument, if you're unaware, you can actually flip the roles consistently in an argument.
Okay.
First, you're the accuser, you're the aggressor,
Right.
you're the abuser in a sense. Tackling someone about something
Right.
turns that person into a victim. The victim, recedes and this and that, but then eventually can it can get flipped during the conversations depending on the words being thrown back, especially because then it's like the accuser can be like, no, I'm being angry because I'm the victim here, and
Right,
and
right.
then and there because then it starts flipping, but it's really like now progressive. You go in a cycle and it just hurts everyone's feelings,
Right.
But I think that all comes from self-awareness, self-development. I think in society in general, at least here in America, mental health and self-awareness is becoming more of thankfully, it seems like it's becoming more of a thing that people should be focusing on and investing in,
Of course.
to develop themselves and just learn about how they operate versus how other people operate, because no two people really operate the same way. We are very experienced. Our brains are backwards from each other.
But we work well together because of that.
Yeah. And it's understanding that. It's like the second you start thinking that people think exactly how you think and that this is obvious, this is how it goes. It's super plain and clear. But it's like everyone in the world, nobody has the same experiences as you. This is literally for example, you could say a SpongeBob quote and you can have somebody who's never seen SpongeBob before.
Who hasn't seen SpongeBob before, though? Nah, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding,
I know,
I'm just
right?
kidding, just kidding.
I know, right?
I feel sorry for them.
Literally,
chocolate.
Exactly. And then literally at a concert, the band was from Britain and they were like, no idea what you guys are talking about. Right?
Yeah.
But that happens. So it's we forget that very easily. We
Right.
just think oh, I had this experience when I was 5 years old. It's it was a developmental thing. So obviously everyone else developed the same way. No, there's people who grew up on farms versus people who grew up in the inner city.
True.
They had different lives. They learned very different lessons. So it's it's not obvious, but that's when when you understand how you work, and then you can kind of start to understand how other people work,
Right,
and this and
of
that.
course.
It's you become less angry because you almost feel wow, how do you not know that basic thing? It's so insulting to me. You literally, you can't be that stupid. That's what people
Right.
think, but it's not that they're stupid. It's oh wait, wow, that's real interesting. You never actually learned that. Okay, so it's the action you just did to me that was complete inconsiderate to that fact, it's because you're just plain unaware.
So, in the stance of self-development, what does a filmmaker, aside from, a personal understanding of human nature, what should a filmmaker develop on? I mean, aside from techniques, obviously.
I mean, you could take it from two sides. There's the business side, because the better you learn people and the better you learn yourself, the better you'll be in sales calls, the more confident you'll be in yourself in presenting your value. Because as filmmakers, we hold a ton of value. We, we
value
are
up and then value down.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
our assets are huge in today's era, especially with social media and everything, video and stuff. It's that's quintessential.
Small content is just running the game.
One video on the Super Bowl makes a company millions of dollars, so it's all very traceable. There are case studies you can lean on and stuff, but that all comes from you knowing that you are in the same field and you can provide the same products. And in the same sense, on the opposite side, we're storytellers. How can you be a good storyteller if you don't understand human emotion, how people will interact, what you're trying to make your audience feel from a video? Take 15-second, a 5-second, 30-second ad, and by the end of the ad, you're just feeling the story. You're feeling sympathy, or you're laughing hysterically. Like
Right.
there's emotions involved. Or you ever see like a clip and you're like, you related just instantaneously to it, and that comes from an understanding of people and situations. And a good movie, gets you. A
Any
good
good,
movie takes you
yeah.
into another world. Like you're in that world.
Any good movies that you could like think of that represent that to your best feeling of just like oh wow, this movie touched me, and for what reason?
That's a hard question. There's a lot of like,
Is it?
do you know what it is for me?
Think the last question. Think of the last movie. I mean,
Yeah.
the closest one to you.
I think movies that like give me that like immersion effect, I would say.
Good term for it.
There was one good one. You know what's ironic? Is I don't really remember the movie that well, but I remember the feeling.
I think that's that Maya Angelou quote at that point, like where you don't remember
the
like,
details, but like I know, like for me, it always pops in my head when this question comes up. It was called Red Lights, I believe, with Robert De Niro and Cillian Murphy. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah. It was, I remember the synopsis is basically a magician, a magician. And then there was just this big flip towards the end. But I just remembered it was one of those kind of like you don't like the twist like threw you off, like you never saw that coming, but the second you saw the twist, everything that happened right before that twist made sense in a completely different way. Like everything in the story made sense going in one direction, but once it twisted the entire story for me. Okay. I just remember that. I really don't remember like the details outside of that. But I just remember that feeling, and I just remember every time this question comes up, for some reason, that's a movie that keeps popping in my head. I don't think it's a movie many people have seen either.
I mean, like, since it's out right now, obviously you and I have yet to see the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
I've heard very good things,
but we'll go back to Enter the Spider-Verse, because I'm sure you've seen the first one.
Yeah, I've seen
and
the
we
first
all
one.
we all enjoyed that movie. It was amazing. And if you haven't seen it yet, too bad. Spoilers, just letting you know right now. But I got such an attachment from that movie just to see a representation of an Afro-Latino Spider-Man come into the mix. On top of that, just like how he became Spider-Man with his uncle passing, like just I cried just seeing that scene. I'm sure you remember the Prowler when he found out.
Yeah.
Like, but did you know that they changed, that entire story of Miles Morales? Like his uncle was actually an asshole in the comic books, comparably to, the movie where he was a guiding force to him.
Yeah, the cop, yeah.
Well, the dad was the cop.
Yeah, the dad was the cop.
Uncle was working for Kingpin and whatever. But,
I remember now,
yeah, he ended up just like, refusing to do the job. And that's what ended up killing him. So that drove the guiltiness that, inspires a lot of Spider-Mans in every universe, just because if you understand how much guilt it's just like a backbone to them. It's just like the guilt. We got all this power, and with great power comes with responsibility. And now you're just so in tune with like even that quote, and like it clicks right into you of just like what it is,
I mean, it's funny enough, speaking to that quote though, that does apply to us too,
Of course.
On a smaller scale. Like being Spider-Man is one of the most powerful in the Marvel comics. Like his strength in the comics, at least, are like it's insanity how strong he actually is and how much he actually holds back.
Because he doesn't want to hurt kill anybody.
He's very conscious because he's a good soul,
Yeah.
He's just also a bit clumsy with his decision making, which is what inevitably ends up happening with half of his stories, But
I think that's part of like the why people are able to
relate.
Exactly, because we're all just human, and we try to do right, and sometimes it comes out wrong, and then we try to correct the things that we've done wrong.
That's one thing I appreciate about the movies, like the DC and the Marvel movies, is that like the criticism of like most comic book movies in the day is like they're unrelatable because they take them very straight from the comics, and especially like the older comics, they're just like, you know, Superman. There's no problems at all. You know, he goes and he saves the
A
day.
friend of mine hates Superman.
Yeah,
I'm just
because he's such a golden boy.
yeah, but
But then in the
yeah,
movies, if you saw Man and Steel and
yeah,
stuff like that, it's like they're really like, well, at least for the movies, trying to even humanize them more and understand that they're humans, like human flawed, even if they're technically aliens or whatever they are, but that they still have like, you know, they have that's the common like weaknesses. None of them are perfect beings. You
yeah,
know, they have some deal with addiction, some deal with this and that, narcissistic personalities, and you got some are like very anxiety prone, imposter syndrome.
right.
Like you see all that transpire in different ones of them, you
Of
know.
course.
And you also start to see the guilt and
Yeah.
the gravitas of the situation.
Now, with that said, is that what you aspire to do in your future? To make not a Marvel film, obviously. I mean, if you want to, obviously, it's not nothing wrong with that. But something of the sort of just like an action, like film, because I know I've spoken to you, and that's been one of your goals.
Yeah, something that I saw. So, bigger film sets, as I've come to learn, they also have an action director, like an
Mm.
action DP, which is separate from the main DP of the
Mm.
story.
Okay.
And some movies that have a big action base, they actually have a separate camera crew dedicated to that are specialized in that with their own DP,
Mm.
cinematographers, and everything that is
Really?
separate from the primary DP of the film. They collaborate, but for the action scene specifically, they're specialized cinematographers in that.
Mm.
And I remember seeing behind the scenes of the second, not the Golden Circle.
Oh,
Yeah, you
wait.
know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, on the second one of that,
Mm-hmm.
there was an interview with the action DP
Mm.
for that film,
Okay.
and him talking about that and all that specialization. And I mean, I love all that stuff. I have a martial arts background as well, and this and that.
Oh,
But
okay.
like
I didn't know
the
that.
different creativity in that too is like, I mean, I don't know. It's also just kind of like a fun thing to think about. I also always had like a partial interest. I do want to get back into martial arts eventually.
Oh,
But I like even thought about like maybe I can just go do stunt work for a while, like figure out, see if I can do it, just have fun, you
any
know.
particular martial arts that you want to jump into?
My background's in Kempo,
Mm-hmm.
and I did a little bit of Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu, but um, I think I would want to like dive into if I had to pick something to study, probably like another type of mixed martial art, or maybe even like Kung Fu or something like
So
that.
you MMA or
Yeah,
what?
probably like
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah, just to mix it all together and just see whatever
Yeah.
benefit goes into it. Hmm, interesting. Aside from martial arts, well, actually, this will go along with martial arts. It'll be the discipline that takes. That's one of the things that I enjoy about martial arts is that it truly allows you to understand that, this is not one day and then you can do backflips or anything like that. And this relates back to filmmaking, where a lot of people is like one YouTube video or I have a drone and now I can just like
Or
now
Scorsese,
yeah
yeah.
no, like my goodness, bro, how many times I've heard that is just a little, it does poke it gets me angry. It does get my blood boiling, just because a lot of people mistake the idea that just because you have something or like now you're a cinematographer,
Yeah, yeah.
so what do you think it takes to really hone in and become one instead of just like labeling yourself?
Yeah. I think, well, one thing we can talk about is the difference between a videographer and a cinematographer. Um, the definition that I've heard that I like that simplifies it really is
Mm-hmm.
a videographer captures what's happening. You know, that's typically like weddings, different things like that. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
capturing, you know, That's just
what's
camera
there,
work.
and
That's just
yeah,
camera work, you know.
yep,
A cinematographer creates what they capture because a cinematographer controls the lighting,
right,
controls the sound. Like it's not just the camera work, but it's everything involved that's happening in front of the camera. So it's like, think about a wedding. You have
right,
wedding cinematographers and videographers. Most are videographers, just whatever happening today. But as wedding cinematographer, they're bringing lights in addition. You know, they are
So
staging things.
yeah,
You know,
okay, that was gonna go into my next question. I was just
yeah.
because you mentioned that. Who is Matt Johnson? Yeah, I gotta thank that man.
Ooh,
He's helped
I
us
love
out.
him. I love him.
Yeah, in so many ways.
Love him.
So I would consider him a wedding cinematographer because he
Yeah.
knows his lighting and he sets up the
Yeah.
shots correctly.
He's in
And
control.
of
He's
course,
100%.
and there's nothing wrong with a videographer. If you're a
No.
videographer, that's fine. But I just see him separate, obviously, than the regular of most wedding videographers, where
Yeah.
they're just like um, even if they do set up just a light, they don't understand what they're
But
doing.
you also got to understand for Matt, yes,
Yeah.
weddings is his main thing,
Hmm.
but he doesn't just do weddings. He has his YouTube, he has his courses. I'm sure he does other things in addition to that, but like he is a business owner fundamentally, you know,
Mm.
and growing. And I'm sure he's already developed teams for his weddings to an extent, you know.
Right. With that being said, what has been some of your favorite projects that's come this year? Because guys, just to let you know, this is also halfway mark for us to have this studio, so this is a big event for us, to reach what we have reached, and we're so grateful to be here. Um, Done a lot of projects, but I know sort of my favorites. What are yours?
That's a great question. Yeah,
I got
no.
those.
First
I
of
got
all,
those.
I know, I know. Like I said, my hosting job might be in jeopardy, guys. But but no. Um, well, first I just want to say I'm proud of us and the team. It's definitely a group effort. It's not
Yes.
alone to like maintain everything that we maintained the last 6 months.
Hmm.
Especially since we both pretty much went full time
Yeah.
last September, August. You know, so to make it this far is good for any business. You know.
Of course.
Um, And no, yeah, like we've been very fortunate. I loved, there was a couple things. I did a conference in the beginning of the year,
Hmm.
which was at a resort in Orlando for a big event,
Mm.
which was great. That one I flew solo on, and just a lot of run and gun. Um,
What'd you have to do?
oh, actually, no, I take that back. That's okay. It's just an event highlight. Yeah, no, that
All
compared.
right.
So
Tell us which one you
I'll
had.
tell you two.
Okay.
There was one that I went to Hawaii for.
Oh, okay.
And then in this
I
last one,
remember that.
a series of videos I did for for a local art museum.
Mm.
So the Hawaii one was an incentive strip held by a major company for their top performers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and one of those top performers, they run a organization that's developed utilizing this other company's products and different things. And so I work with them. They're one of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they were invited out, I went out. And so this way I can create a recap video in the sense to, because for them, they use these videos to incentivize their other performers and their other sales agents and
Mm.
different people in their organization, because this is the stuff that's available to them as well, you know? So, with
Yeah.
typical marketing stuff. So that was in Hawaii.
Could you break that down a little bit further? Just because I'm so they're doing marketing for themselves or for
So they
other
run an
companies?
educational platform
Okay.
for entrepreneurs in the online space.
Oh, all right, all right. So that's how.
Yeah,
Okay. Continue on.
yeah.
Sorry.
And they specialize in a specific company's product line. So that company with their product line, they have multiple organizations
Mm-hmm.
that use their product line, their manufacturer.
Mm.
And so they always take the top performers who are distributors for them to on these different incentive trips around the world. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. massive. So they have money to blow. And they treat their top performers very well, being that my client's one of these top performers. So yeah, so we go. I was flown out, went on the incentives trip with them,
Nice.
and I didn't get the 100%, but I mean I was there. I was in white, and got the tag along. I went handheld the whole time.
Oh.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to be carrying around a Ronin for this. I had it with me just in case. But I ended up, just because it's getting into cars and in and out of cars and this and that. So I was like, okay, I'll go handheld, rigged up the Sony. And then the whole time I shot most of it in 120 because I know I'm just doing a recap. Don't really have too much talking head stuff. I did do some interviews there for different pieces of content while I was there. Because we had access to a lot of top performing speakers there too. So we would say, oh, hey, they have personal connections. Let's get some more content with these people.
Right.
And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It was a crazy experience. And then one fun part though is we went to Kahlua Ranch, and I didn't know this, but this is where they filmed Jurassic Park. All, like most of the Jurassic Park films, they filmed Magnum PI. They filmed Journey to the Center of Earth, the Journey to The Rock.
Yeah.
They filmed Skull Island, Kong.
Do you think The Rock brings them back to Hawaii to film that? Like, particularly because he's Hawaiian too.
Yeah, I'm sure. He,
he
like,
has some say, but
he'll go back there.
Like,
I mean, I think even the Fast and Furious movie took partially place in Hawaii. Not the new one that came out, but the one where he was involved in the first time.
Oh, okay. Apparently he's coming back to the series.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Money.
Family never dies.
All right. Vin Diesel. That's going to be on his gravestone right there.
Yeah, right? Family.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. But it was like, it's also understanding there. I was there to do a job. So I wasn't trying to overstep at any point. I was making sure that I maximized my time at any given moment because I was only there for a set amount of days. So I was taking initiative, organizing the people I needed to speak to.
So they didn't do this for you. You had to figure out everything for them.
For the most part, like they had the plan because they weren't in charge of the itinerary. And it's kind of like one of those trips where each individual can almost do whatever they want to do.
Right.
So I had to keep
that
track
sounds
of
like
where
such a headache already.
where the key people were.
Right.
And I had people initially who were helping me with the initial logistics. So we had a base plan, but still, I needed to take the initiative to make sure that I was getting the key people that I needed to get.
Of course.
That I was capturing, like, oh, hey, can you remind me when you guys are leaving for this excursion so I could hop on with you guys, this and that.
Right.
I remember a funny moment that kind of describes this is that they weren't sure if they were going to be able to get me into the welcome party at all.
Wait.
They weren't sure. They weren't sure. I'm there. I'm already.
For the welcome party, like
where they were hosting like a big dinner and outside.
That they're hosting. They
weren't the ones hosting.
Oh,
like
right,
I said,
right. Sorry.
So I'm not like. It was a bit of an undercover thing.
Oh.
But it was funny. So I just like. I basically, we kind of wung it. And it was like, I was trying to think, I was like, you know what? I see people walking. No one's checking anything per se. So I'm just going to go. And I remember walking with my camera, like off to the side, holding it by the handle. And I'm trying to stick to some form of group of people and just going. And I remember passing some staff right before the entrance. And I remember hearing as I walked past them, next thing I know, I hear, hey. And instead I was like in my direction. I just kept moving. I didn't hear that.
Smart man. Nope, that's not to me.
That's not to me. I was like, yeah, I heard a, hey, yeah, you. And I was like, not me. I kept going, walking. They didn't come up and stop me or anything like this or that. And I walked in and I remember seeing the main guy who hired me, my client, he's at the buffet table getting himself food. I'm like, hey, I made it. He's like, oh, you made it in. Great.
So they didn't come up to you or anything after? Like,
They were like, no, they weren't worried. He's a very chill dude.
no,
Yeah.
not him. I'm talking about
Oh,
like the person.
nobody on staff. And I started to make friends with.
The,
There was another production company there, a full fledged production company that was
okay.
working for the main company who was hosting everything. So they had like all access pass, and like their rigs were. They had every guy was on a Ronin. Every guy had a different millimeter prime lens on it. So you had one guy dedicated on the 35, one guy dedicated on an 85, on the 100, and then on a 50. And so they're
Love
all.
it. I love it.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it too.
Yeah.
That's goals.
Yeah.
The full, the big
Oh
M.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
Ronin.
M1,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Ronin M. Yeah, no, I know that.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was cool to see. So I started talking to them, asking them questions. I'm there with my little handheld.
Yeah.
But people love the video afterwards. So that was just like a cool
I feel like that
experience.
saved you a lot though. Just because it was on handheld and it wasn't on because it wouldn't once you bring out the Ronin or you bring out something bigger, then they start like, hey, like, yo, are you
Yeah.
supposed to be doing that here?
Where's your pass? Where's
Right,
your are you
right,
part
right,
of this
right.
production
Yeah.
company? Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I love the Sony A7S3.
Yeah. I mean, I had like
Yeah.
the V mount attached to the side of
Yeah,
it
oh,
and the
okay.
shotgun mic, so it's like a little rigged out,
Yeah.
but kind of looks like how it looks like now with the monitor and everything.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, no, I kept it simple and it just acted like I was supposed to be there. And no, and it worked out and I got into everything pretty much and it was a lot of fun. The ranch was just cool to see. It was
Yeah.
it was an ATV, it was a UTV, utility vehicle.
Oh.
So it's like basically like a tricked out golf cart.
I would love for us
It's
to
like a
get one
heavy
of
hitter.
those. Yeah.
So we were
Because
going through. It was so bumpy though.
oh, was it?
It was
Because
like
I was about to say just like have the Ronin and then just be in the back and then just take like a tracking shot
well,
backwards.
think about it.
Yeah.
You see, like in Jurassic Park, it's
Yeah.
like fields and just dirt roads.
Okay.
That's what we were driving through.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was
Yeah.
cool to see that they leave a lot of props there. Like there was a Triceratops skull, like full life size there, and they had like the boneyard scene from Skull Island there, where you could see like the heads of the old Kongs and stuff.
Yeah.
Like they left movie props there. There was like if you watch Magnum PI, that like burnt down house there.
Oh, wow.
So, and they had the sign saying like what it was. And then one other cool fact I learned is we went up to this ridge where we saw this like it just looks like a normal little lake, right? And then the guide was telling us how in Jurassic World, that little lake you see, that's the water stadium where that big water fish comes and eats the shark.
Oh, wow.
That you saw that wide shot.
Yeah.
He says like the wide shot is of that lake, and they did everything in post. Everything you saw, the entire park was built on top of that, and then they were like, you know what? Let's take those mountains over there and move them over here, and like,
Yeah.
and he was, I was
Oh,
just
my
like thinking about, it, I'm like, that's insane. And then also right in that same lake is a little pier, and that's where they shot 50 First Dates.
Oh, nice.
With Adam
Yeah, I love
Sandler.
that movie.
Yeah,
Drew
it's like
Barrymore.
that little
Yeah.
pier, where they spend like all their first dates
Yeah,
at.
yeah, of course.
So it was also right down there. So I was like, it was just a cool for me as a filmmaker.
If I get to make a film, that's probably one of the spots I want to go to, just to get a vacation plus all that.
That'd be a company vacation down the line. So
now that you've spoken about that, what's the second project that you were just like in love with?
Yeah, the second that I really enjoyed is this recent project I did for this art museum locally here. We did a series. Well, we started out with a series of. It's going to be eventually about 30 videos, give or take, depending on artist availability.
Yeah.
So, like this first part was supposed to be, I think, 12 videos. We ended up doing only 8 of the artists.
Oh, so are you gonna go back to it or?
So it depends. Some of the artists delayed, some of them just flat out declined. So I was like, it is what it is.
Fair enough.
But it was a mix of going to their studios and capturing. So I kind of like that on the go, dealing with what I have in front of me and making things work and creating in the moment.
You do have some good lights. Yeah, and you know how to shoot. So
yeah, thank you. So it's like that's a big fun because it keeps you easy. Like, yeah, doing studio work where you're in the studio all the time, that's just a different type of fun. That's a different type of
I really
creating.
do enjoy it way more than events. I mean, there is a certain love for events that I have, but unfortunately, like what I've realized is just the true love that I have is just like planning a shot out rather than like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to this event, I'm taking a bunch of shots and then I'm just putting it all together and then praying it works out.
I mean, it's so funny. That's another way we differ. I'm like, I struggle with the pre-pro. The
Ah.
pre-pro is a struggle for me. It's like, making a shot list, this and that. Like, my pre-pro is a Google Note that I'm like making bullet points,
Right.
real quick. I like, okay, this are like the basic things to make sure I stay on track and like to make
Right.
sure I get the things that are essential, and this and that.
Of course.
But I live for like my creativity just like opens right up when I'm in the moment. I need to make this happen. It's like, okay,
You're
what's the
back
vision?
against the wall.
Like
Let's go.
what I'm trying to make happen is like, okay, my brain, I fly. Like, and you see me like in the moment, it's like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this and this and that.
Right.
Like until I'm in that position, none of those juices are flowing right away. So I'm just like in pre-pro, I look at it like, okay, let me make a shot list or this or
Right.
that. I struggle with that. But once I'm like in it, I see it, my brain starts doing the calculations. Like I feel like that meme where all the calculations are flying through my face.
Oh yeah, of course. Like from Zach
Yeah, Zach
Galifianakis.
Galifianakis.
Yeah.
Nice.
Or Rain Man.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
it's strange when for me it's I guess like I only get questions in my mind with that where
Yeah.
I'm just like, where are we shooting it? What are we doing? How are we doing this? Like, how many people are going to be? What's the idea behind this? Like, I start asking those questions that way. It reveals to me like any boundaries that I already like. Once I have a boundary, then I know like, okay, let me work within that boundary.
Yeah.
Like that way, it's like I can't bring a giant softbox with me because it's on the beach or whatever it is, and it's just like it's gonna blow away. Okay, so what is the limitations and what I can work with? But that's just how
Yeah.
I try.
Well, what's funny? It's because I ask all the same questions beforehand. I think it's for me, it comes out a little more naturally in conversation. Like, I ask them for the same reasons, but maybe not the same intent. And to say that, it's like, and like the way you're saying, you're asking it very specifically because you're thinking technically, what do I need to bring? What do I need to do to accomplish
the
what you're
less I
trying to
bring,
do?
the better for me
exactly.
and my back.
And that's totally valid.
Right.
For me, it's more like, okay, I'm not thinking at all what I need to bring yet. I'm only thinking about like, okay, what are the things that will impact the gig and the vision? And I know that I need to know, and because, and then all the tech, I'm always, I overpack typically most of the time.
I agree.
For that reason, and
I'm grateful that you do every time.
Thank you. But at the same time, so it's like, it's just, again, different way of thinking,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a right or wrong.
So those are your two projects that you enjoyed so much. And now let me ask
This
you,
year,
on top of the interview, shooting it around, did you have to come up with any questions or anything else for them, or was that just
For this one, I did not. The curator who the exhibition it was for was with me. And she's the one she had a direct mission of what she wanted to ask the artist and what to bring it out. But it was more of a conversation between them.
Right.
And then it was up to me to bring down those interviews into concise 5 to 10 minute videos. But they were like 20 to 50-minute interviews.
20 50-minute interviews.
Yeah.
And you had to cut
bring
it to
it down.
what?
Yeah.
To what?
My initial goal was bring it down to like 3 minutes, but that wasn't happening.
Fair enough. They got that knowledge, got to share it. But in that, I guess how you were shooting it, let me ask you, what was you had to have like something like premeditated, like when you go inside every time, because like you did show me them, and one of the things I did notice, which I loved, and I love anybody that does this, shoot to the corners, like right in the corner.
Oh,
Like,
yes. Yes, depth. Yes. Maximum depth. Yes. Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is like anyone. You pick up things as you go, and you understand what you like. One thing I like, and I guess I find as a creative challenge, is how do I create the maximum amount of depth with the space that I have available to me? You know, because I think it's a great look when a scene has like depth, and especially when there's leading lines.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Absolutely. And an interesting background.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, or like if it's not interesting, how can you make it interesting? Or like hide the stuff that you don't want people to see? Like,
or how do you make somebody pop out?
exactly.
On top of that, because you lit it out beautifully, obviously.
All of them were one light.
There you go. That goes to show, but a powerful light, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Not just some measly like, oh, I just bought this, at Home Depot or something like that with the softbox. I'm assuming.
Yeah. It was I believe, is this my 48 above us?
Yes, it is.
So it was this softbox and that JVM 300 watt, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it came out beautifully in that. But one of the other things that I feel people don't take into account is wardrobe. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that comes back and forth, and it's also like, that's part of our responsibility to help inform the clients.
Right.
And because most people don't understand that, like, when you're going for a video, there's a lot of different rules that are happening that you're probably unaware of. For example, contrast is a typical one, but like if you're wearing a black shirt and the background so happens to be black, you all of a sudden turn into a floating head. Because even though you can look at the, like, with your eyes, you see it.
Tell them.
You like with your eyes, you see I see the person standing in front of the black background with a black shirt, and it's very easily distinguishable in horrible lighting. Like, what's the problem? Cameras are not as good as our eyes, as amazing as they are. They're just not. And with color grade and everything, if you really want things to pop and this and that, when you have the same color back to back, they will blend. Or like even in the same realm, dark color on dark, you're not going to pop as a subject. If you start looking at different cinematography and film, especially commercials, you'll notice that like light colors on a dark background or dark colors on a light background
makes the character
and
pop.
really separates you, And there's obviously in betweens, and then there's obvious creative choices you can make where it makes sense to do the opposite.
Right.
But
or break the rule for whatever reason.
Exactly. But like in most cases, that's what you want.
One of the scenes, and this is from a cartoon that I loved when they broke this rule, was Samurai Jack.
Oh, love that show.
Yeah, I one of the best shows I've ever seen. The creator is just Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah, all great.
He just goes down the list. But one of the scenes that I loved was Samurai Jack came into confrontation with a ninja, and in it was like he basically hid in the white. Like he dressed up in white and the ninja was in the black. But the white was like how they did that was so incredible because you kind of only see the sliver of his eyes and then it sort of got lost in it.
Yeah.
And the white in the dark, and then they were just clashing in between that as the darkness was starting to swallow the light.
Yeah.
And so he was running out of space to hide into in his camouflage.
Yeah, there was a lot of artistic metaphors happening in there.
Yeah, so it was just very, for even as a kid, when I watched that show, I was just like blown away by just the choice that they did and how they created that scenery. I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other things that I wanted to ask you, because it's been 6 months since we started this and a year since we've opened up this studio, is some of the initial investments that you've made into this equipment based. What has been your favorites? What has been your least favorites that you've been like, this was a waste? This has been such a game changer for me. Like whether it's software, whether it's just, hardware, or, like things that you would, I wish I could buy another one of these.
That's good. Let me think. That's a good question. And recently, in this past year?
Yeah, just this year.
This is this year.
No,
Yes, this
not
year.
lifetime. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. I would say, well, one, which is a simple one, V-mount batteries.
Oh, I do love them.
Yeah, they definitely like not having the hot swap anymore is a blessing. Now, that I didn't
Take it
know
through
that
the
I
day.
didn't have.
Yeah.
Even when I did these long conferences, like I'll run that V mount empty in one day. Like, but yeah, my poor camera, I work it to the bone. So that's one. Another, I would say another thing I'm grateful for is that Manfrotto tripod.
Oh
that we
yeah,
have two of it.
I mean we still use it right
Yeah.
now. I bought one just
I
because of yours.
I still run into it.
Yeah.
It's like there is nothing that replaces a good fluid head for tracking.
But the thing that I love about this one, I forgot which what it's called. Is it a 501? What is it? Well, whatever the name of it is.
Yeah.
It's just the reason why I had to buy yours was because of just that.
The center pole.
Yeah. Where you could just
That's
raise
very
it up
convenient, yes.
versus the counterintuitive. Like I love how the other tripods are built too, but like just that you can just like, oh, I just need this little bit of raised instead of messing with the legs and just like raising it up. That has been such a game changer for me as well. Just like when I take it to other gigs, like corporate gigs, it saves me so much time because
saves you space too.
Yeah, but just like how people are so impatient in those seconds of just like, I need to move all these legs. It just doesn't work like, just me raising it up, unfortunately.
It's funny. It's like these are some simple pieces of equipment, and they're a little on the pricier side. Right. There's like a couple $100 for each of these types of pieces of equipment. Like the tripod itself, that's a $500 tripod.
Of course. But
it makes a hell of a difference. Because I remember I used to always think too, it's like I could get one for like $60. They're cheap, they're inexpensive. Flimsy. I'm not really making money, but it's like, it's a weird night and day experience where it's like you don't know until you know type of thing.
Right.
But it makes a heck of a difference. And then I could say that about a lot of gear in here. Just getting better lights has been a great improvement. Getting a real good on-camera shotgun mic.
Oh,
has been good. Where I'm finding
that Sennheiser.
That Sennheiser that I have.
It's beautiful.
And the fact that I can be in post and I'll listen to that and I'm like, actually, I'll take this over the lapel, the Rhodes, or this or that. Yeah. But even the Rhodes having internal recording, that's such a lifesaver.
Yeah. Tell the people how you need to have redundancy. Like you need
redundancies on redundancies on redundancies. Like. Oh man, because it happens too often. If you have one dedicated recording point, it's like if that goes for whatever reason,
and it does, it happens. It's not and I love your quote when it comes down to this. It's not it won't happen.
It's not about if it happens, it's about when it happens.
Thank you. 100%. Love that quote.
And it's like, for example, a good example is those Rode mics. Because the first iteration didn't have it. I'm so happy the second did. And now so many have followed suit, like the DJI's version and different Hollyland's version, I think, too. That with the internal recording, I've had so many times that I have the recording going into camera. But two things are happening when it's going into camera. It's going through the camera's internal preamp, which is not great.
Yeah, they're shit, unfortunately.
And secondly, what's happening also is sometimes you open up the world to wireless interference, which I'm very familiar of. Right. And you can have a perfect recording in camera, and that's great to have. But then the next thing you know, in the middle of the guys talking in camera, you hear that zzz, or that zzz, sound.
Of course.
And but with the internal recording, you can just pop that in and replace that part, or replace the whole thing. And
thank goodness for Rode, they actually stepped up on top of that, where now you just plug into the computer into the Rode, and you can just drop it.
It works as an interface too now.
Oh,
like you can take the Rode, the receiver, plug a USB-C into your computer. Your Zoom will recognize it. OBS will recognize it as an audio input.
Lovely.
And then you can just input into that.
So let me ask you, these are things that you've loved as a purchase. What is something that were like, this was a waste of money? Yeah.
Oh man, I am slowly starting to feel like that about the drone.
Ah.
I am. I am. No, only because it's just like I think it's still valuable, and I
Of
think we
course, of
will
course.
get the value out of it because when we do use it, it's great.
Yeah.
It looks
Yeah.
fantastic. It's just the amount of that we're using it, I feel like is less and less and less and less
As we're going
as we're
further.
going further, you
Yeah,
know.
it's
And
just
it's
like,
and I feel like maybe it's one of those things that it drops, and then we're gonna get to this level of climb that it's just gonna go back up, maybe.
Yeah, no,
Where
I
it's
cross
like,
my fingers about that.
so
Yeah.
because it's like, when we're doing more things that require an aerial view.
Right.
And I know people make entire livings in just being a drone pilot.
Of course.
So it's not the knock. It's just for our use cases. It's a very expensive paperweight that doesn't leave the studio very, very often. Outside of that, I mean, there's been like little trinkets that I've gotten that were like for my Canon or different things that like little stepping stone things that were
Right.
good in the moment.
Mm-mm.
And then a second you advance the primary piece of gear, it's like, okay, I don't need this anymore, you know? So it's not that I regret buying them. It's that like now they're just kind of obsolete because now we've advanced past them. You know, we outgrew them.
Of course.
Yeah, so there's definitely, I feel like, ways we could have spent better in the beginning. Like,
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that we've, and I've seen with you, like obviously you guys haven't seen, but you've guided a lot of, well, I'll say it like this, you mentored a lot of people within this industry. And from what I've seen.
appreciate that.
Oh yeah, no, from business to technique to equipment to everything else, and in that stance of just like making sure that they had the proper gear or just the proper mentality. Like I just want to ask, like, what would you preach to them, or what would you just like encourage them to do? You know.
Yeah, so it's like, what would I say to someone starting out?
Well, not even starting out, just like out here. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just like because I think you even talk to intermediates now. Like,
Yeah,
as I feel like eventually you're gonna go into coaching, like
probably.
yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. I feel like that's what the industry is as a whole. Like, you become such a professional that eventually, you just turn into a coach just because it's also a revenue now. So
Yeah. I mean, I personally,
Yeah.
love just helping, imparting
And
my
that's why.
experience and
Yeah.
different things like that. So, especially because, people are more talented than they think half the time, but also realizing that, talent will only take you so far,
Of course.
And yeah, I think the biggest thing is be humble enough to know that you should be self-educating at all times. Like, you will never know everything. You will never know enough. Like, you need to just get on that train as like, not just staying up to date with the latest tech.
Right.
That's like, I think that's like the catch-22. We can get so lost in looking at tech.
Right.
It's like, oh, but this camera just came out and does 8K 60 instead of
Open
8K
gate.
30.
Yeah, like
And it's like, it's getting like ridiculous, and it's cool. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, the Nikon's new,
yeah.
with their raw format, that's crazy. But more so getting down, making sure you have a grasp on the basics, like really have a grasp on it, getting experience. Don't be afraid to get your hands wet, experimenting and just trying things. And then understand and value self-education. There's a lot of great courses out there. Some, yes, are more expensive, some are not. Finding a mentor that really helps, or someone in your field that's just like, hey, he's working professionally, let me at least try to pick his brain. And if you don't know anyone, like, don't be afraid to DM somebody that you respect, in the world. You'll be surprised how many people are likely to respond. And but if not that, just, hey, we all done in the beginning. YouTube, get self-educated. If you're young and school makes sense, you want to be more in the production house, maybe. But Like school is really more, you want that certification, you want that specialization, in my opinion.
And network in
And
school.
networking is
Crucial.
one of the crucial, like that should be one of your priorities, is get to know the right people, get those ins in the industry. Those are one of those places to get that is from school. And also chance to find a team that you like to work with too, you know.
Absolutely.
Those are the opportunities you get from that.
If I learned from Mr. Black, Mr. Mars Black,
Yeah.
anything, it was that.
Yeah, that's a
watch that podcast.
great
Mr.
episode.
Yeah.
Great episode.
All of them. Just watch them all. Yeah. But
And then the other side is equipment. I mean, I think as long as you're hitting, you can't neglect like these three areas, you know.
Yeah.
You want to hit lighting, you want to hit audio, and then also your visuals with your camera, you know. So I mean, nowadays, as long as your camera can do 4K and can do at least 60, I would say, that covers most of your bases in most situations, you know.
Of course.
Of course, there's different price ranges even in that nowadays, but and just understanding those things, that will help you out in most senses. You'd rather spend more money on a good lens to pair with your body than something like that if the budget's an issue. And then and in lighting, you want at least one good strong light, something definitely over a minimum of 100 watts.
And not a panel.
No.
Yeah.
Panels are good for effects, but they're not a key light. They're not a primary light.
Yeah. And you can make any COB into a panel, like just by putting a diffuser.
Yeah, 100%. You know, so if you want something versatile, there's definitely on the lower end, there's lights that have the RGB capabilities, stuff like that, that gives you a key light power, but you definitely want that power in one layer diffusion, you know.
Makes sense.
So that'll be, and if you get that, and then you also get one piece of good audio gear, be it like if you're doing a lot of talking heads, maybe something like a Rode or the DJI mic or some form of lapel, or if you're doing a variety of that and other things like big area stuff, then looking into on-camera mics or shotgun mics. You know?
As you're speaking, I'm gonna be doing the editing to this, so I'm just gonna put cha-ching, cha-ching. Cash registers is going up right there. As you keep saying things, it's only like a $5,000 investment. Now it's $7,000, but no biggie. No biggie.
But I mean, in any creative business, that's what it is. I mean, as a person who's like a serial creative,
tell them,
like in drumming, a drum set packed with cymbals, sticks, everything you need, you're spending, I can't imagine you spending less than $1,000.
Right.
Like, unless you get like an electric kit that's like $300, $400. But like, you want to gig out, you want to have like a real kit, you know, it's like you're spending money.
Of course.
Same thing, like in photography, you still have to buy a camera and everything. You still have to buy a flash, this and that. Yes, there is definitely ways to build that stuff up. And if you get one of the core three, I realistically think you can spend less than $1,000, you know?
Fair enough.
And if you're starting any creative field like this or any side hustle in general, I am a big advocate of sponsoring yourself, which what I mean by that is having your 9 to 5. Do not leave your job. Have your job.
Kids, you heard it here first, all right?
Have a job that has a predictable schedule. Not like restaurant stuff like that can be predictable and that's good money, can be, but like having something with a predictable schedule that where you can, on all your time off, you can do your side hustle or your creative venture, because that will help you sponsor your mission, and then you reinvest that money, and then you let that grow till that income becomes greater than your 9 to 5, thus replacing it. Then you can leave it, and then you can continue on. And that's what also is important, to just start understanding financial literacy, even if it comes down to like a zero-based budget, which you can Google. So, and just having that would just help you in life in general. Just learning how to zero-based budget, you know.
Fair enough. So on that note, I think we will end the podcast here today. Victor, thank you so much for being the guest today. And I will say you can find us at the Vision Maker Podcast, YouTube, Instagram, and anything else that you want to add? Your Victor _ Vision Maker. Find him there. You can find me at Chavaria Diarrhea Chronicle. No, excuse me, Chavaria Diarrhea Diary.
There you go.
Yeah. Almost messed that up.
Well, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It was such a pleasure. It was such a long ride to get here.
Yeah.
And at Victor M _ Vision Maker. You can find me on Instagram.
One last thing. I got to shout out my mom's. She's out here. She's monitoring and taking care of us. Thank goodness.
Shout out to all the moms out there holding us in our lives together.
Of course. All right, guys. Night. Peace.